Hey friends, today we are going to be painting a beautiful anchor design as a symbol of hope, strength, and stability. Now, while we're painting, we're also going to be sharing some powerful biblical truths, and today it's going to be from Hebrews 6:19. Now, whether you are a beginner, painter, new to painting, or you just want some encouragement, you are in the right place. So, we're going to get started, but first, I want to read you the scripture. So, I wrote it down so that I wouldn't get it wrong. So, Hebrews 19, and as I read this, I'm going to kind of turn you back to the painting so we can get started. But Hebrews 6:19 says, "We have this hope as an anchor for the soul, firm and secure." Um, I love that because truly He is our hope and He can anchor us. Now we're going to start off this painting with a background, but I don't know if you can see my pencil drawing here. We have a beautiful anchor with some flowers. So we're just going to start with the background real quick and easy. I'm just going to mix some blue and white together and fill that in. And I want it pretty light and pretty messy. I'm not worried about anything being perfect. I'm going to go a little over my pencil lines too, just so that I don't, um, it just looks funny if we don't. So, um, anytime I think of an anchor, um, my I think of the time that I went sailing with my parents. They bought a new sailboat, sailing catamaran from St. Thomas, and we needed to bring it home to Texas. So we flew down, and our first leg of this venture with getting the boat home was to get it from St. Thomas and bring it back to the Bahamas. And then it'd stay there for a little bit until we could go again. And we had 2 weeks to do it, which sounds like a long time. But in sailing life, it is not. And when you have to worry about weather and all those things, it definitely is not. Um, but as we went on this trip, we got to St. Thomas and we were ready to leave. They just bought the boat, so we were ready to take it out for its first time. Super excited, and I brought my two little ones, my two girls, along. My parents were there, obviously, since it's their boat. My husband was with us. And the first part of the trip, real smooth. We didn't get to sail a whole lot necessarily because there wasn't a lot of wind, which is good and bad. It was peaceful, but not quite as fun as sailing. But we start out just real gentle start to our trip, right? Not a lot going on. We go from St. Thomas, make it to Puerto Rico, and we stop there because whenever we actually got on the boat, we realized that there was a cracked keel. Um, and if you don't know, on a sailboat, the keel kind of helps stabilize the boat, kind of like an anchor, but it's attached to the bottom of the boat and it kind of helps stabilize it. And it was cracked. And so we really didn't want it to fall, like crack all the way through and come off. So we had to stop pretty regularly on this trip to check it and make sure that it wasn't cracking worse, wasn't moving, those kinds of things. And so we did this trip in December. So my husband, every time we stopped, he would go and swim the keel. So he'd go under the boat, check it, and make sure that it wasn't getting worse. So we stop in Puerto Rico. Everything's good. We go, we get our food and stuff for the rest of the trip. It's supposed to be about a week to 2 week trip. So we do that. Everything's fine. Then we decide, okay, we're gonna go to the Dominican Republic next, stop there before doing a big jump to Turks and Caicos, that area. And when we stop in the Dominican Republic, things are great. And we're at this beautiful marina, um, tons of things to do there with the girls, all of that. But we didn't want to stay long because we wanted time at the end of our trip when we got to the Bahamas, to the Exumas. So we checked the weather, and we had a couple people forecasting for us, and like, well, it might be okay. It might be a little sketchy, but we're trying to hit a time frame, right? Which is never a good idea when you're boating. For sure sailing. So, but we're trying to get that time frame. So we get on the boat, load up, and we start to head out. And we get about 2, 3 hours out in this water. And the entire time, like as soon as we leave the marina, the little sheltered bay, it is huge seas, huge waves, huge seas. And I'm not talking about like, 4 or 5 foot, which could be a little uncomfortable. I'm talking about 8 to 10 foot waves that we're just going straight up and straight down. And it was terrifying. And I mean, fun, yes, but not with my kids on board. So a little scary, little anxious, but I just kept praying to God and saying, you know what? You're with us. You can calm this storm if you want to. And if you choose not to, then that's your choice too. And I will trust you. And I was singing just some old hymns. And it's always funny whenever I'm stressed out. I don't go always with the most recent worship songs. Instead, I go with those old hymns. So start singing some of those, and gotta love my girls. They were, gosh, how old would they be at the time? I guess 5 and 6. So they were young. Um, but they're just hanging out. They're just having a good time. They're wearing the life jackets because there's no way I was gonna have them without them. And they had to stay inside the cabin of the boat, so they weren't out where they could fall off the boat or anything. So it was not like they were in danger. But the whole time they're just chilling. They're just having a good time. And they started watching a movie and just enjoying themselves. And they don't even realize. And then there's a few times like a wave would hit the window, and my youngest would be like, "Oh, look, big wave." But it was nothing, right? And I'm trying to not let them see that I have this worry. But in the midst of that storm, I knew God had me. So even while we weren't anchored, he was my anchor in the middle of all of that. And he kept me from freaking out more. And he also, though, guided us to make a change. So while we were out there in that, we realized we were looking at the weather predictions of what was going to happen next and all of that, and realized this is a storm that's going to stay going for a while. And I can get out of this storm if we just kind of step back, stop rushing through things, and just go back to close to where we started from. A little different spot, but close to where we started from, and try again another day. And so we discussed it, we talked about it, we decided that was the best and safest choice for everybody. Because while we weren't in danger yet, it was getting to be nighttime, and we were, like I said, this is our first time taking the boat out. And so we'd only been on it for a few days or so, probably 5 or 6 days. So it wasn't like we were super experienced, and we'd been trained, but I mean, we had a captain on board, and he was like, I just don't know. Like, I have to sleep at some point. And so while I'm up, we're safe, we're good. But I don't want, if y'all aren't comfortable doing this, I don't want to do it. And so we turned around and we went back. And sometimes that is so hard to do in life, isn't it? Just stop and turn around. Stop whatever we thought would be this amazing choice, and it'd be great, and we can get to whatever we want sooner, and it'll be perfect. Sometimes God just wants us to slow down. Just say, no, take your time here. You can go through something quicker later. But right now, just take your time and enjoy where you're at and enjoy the people you're with. So we went back to the Dominican Republic, and we stayed at this marina that was not near as nice and fancy as that first one. This marina was, I mean, it fulfilled its purpose. It was just a wooden pier that stuck out, and that is it. There was not finger pier. So, what I mean by that, so there's this wooden pier that stuck out, and a lot of marinas have like these others where your boat slides in here. You get this slip, you get this slip, right? This one didn't have that. It had one pier. Most of the boats that hung out near this marina were on mooring balls, so basically permanent anchors that have a ball at the top that you can tie to, and they were not um, attached to land. That's how most of the boats were in this marina. But we got a spot up on that wooden pier, um, and there was one restaurant. Wasn't a whole lot to do there, and we stayed there for like 3 days. And that may not sound like very long, but that's a long time when there's not a lot to do and you have a 5 and a 6 year old and you have my mom who just wanted to go. She was ready to go. And so every day we were checking the weather, we were looking at what are we going to do? Is it time to leave yet? Do we need to stay? And we just had to pray about it, look at what God was telling us, look at what the weather was, which, God controls the weather. So what he was deciding for us, and just we had to be mindful. And in the end, after those few days, we got going and we had a beautiful rest of our trip. Now, we didn't get to stop in Turks and Caicos like we had talked about. We didn't get to make all these extra stops, but we had a nice, smooth trip the rest of the way. Now, I'm not saying it was all perfect. The very first little leg of it, we had 5 foot waves or so, but nothing like what we had already done. So it was very pleasant, much better, much smoother. We got to just enjoy each other and enjoy the boat. And then it actually ended up even more perfect because when we got to the Exumas, we only had a day or so there when we got there because we had to hustle to get our flights and everything. But we get there and there's the coolest little Junkanoo event, which is like their New Year's event, and we made it there just in time for it. And especially being someone in art, that event is so cool because they make the most elaborate costumes and it's all worn. But when I say costumes, they are costumes, but they are floats. So, like parade floats that someone wears. And it is the absolute coolest thing. If you ever have a chance to be like to see this actual event happen, it is amazing. I just feel so blessed that we were able to make it for that. And and honestly, part of me wonders if we had gotten there early, would we have left earlier? Would we have gotten caught up in all the other things that we wanted to do? Would we have been done being on that island and wanted to go explore some of the others? All these things. I don't know. Maybe we wouldn't have. Maybe we would have still made a point to be there, but I can't guarantee it. And so I just feel like God kept us right where He needed us, guided us through all of that. And we didn't anchor very often in that trip. We went to marinas most of the time just because new boat, we just want to make sure everything's good. Um, but he still anchored us spiritually and mentally, even if our boat was not necessarily anchored. And I think about that a lot whenever I think about that trip. And then that trip really made me think about just life in general and how he very much does that for us on a daily basis. And I love him for that. So, just a cool story to go with our little anchor theme here. And all I've done while telling that story is just build in this anchor with some dark blue. I did kind of go through with 2 coats, but the first coat wasn't fully dry, so you'll see that it doesn't fully cover up yet. and that's okay. I just wanted to go ahead and go through, and then I may end up adding some more later. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm gonna have some fun with the background. So I'm gonna make some swirls and stuff in there. Um, but this um the story and this painting, I just feel like sometimes an anchor is just it just means like that calm. So finding the calm. So just like this painting or this painting in general is very calming. Um, that is what God wants for us is just to give us that calm, give us that anchor in the storm. So, um, we're going to keep going and do some swirls. We're going to have some fun with it and not stress about it because we're going to let Him keep us calm and just help us to enjoy. So, I'm going to use just white. Now, this is a very light background, so this isn't going to show up a whole lot, but it will show up some. And that's really what I want. I don't want it. I mean, it can obviously show, but I'm not too worried about whether it's like super bold or anything like that. I'm just kind of doing some curves, some swipes, and you can do as much or as little as you want, but that's also, again, the fun of this painting. You're just kind of filling in, keeping it messy, overlapping, putting layers in, and enjoying painting. And just kind of listening to God and what He wants for you. And that's one of my favorite things about painting is just time to listen to Him, right? Time to stop worrying about all of the hustle bustle, all of the millions of things going on, not thinking about recital and dance and competitions or anything like that, not worried about school or spelling test or AR tests, right? It's just enjoying putting paint on a canvas, putting paint on a brush, and painting it in. So this is not supposed to look like anything fancy. It's just supposed to be fun. So if you decide to paint this and you're filling it in, just have fun with this. Don't overthink it. How many times do we overthink things, right? Just let your brush. So, and we're going to layer in some other colors in here in just a little bit. So this is just a bit of a base. Sometimes I get a little distracted in these parts, just kind of get lost in the swipes and the swirls, and I think I just enjoy not thinking. So, going through, adding in some white, right? Okay, and then I'm actually going to use a smaller brush, and I'm going to use the dark blue that I used for this, and I'm going to just kind of pull in a little detail with that in there as well. And you can add as much or as little as you want. But adding these layers in here, it's just like God layers over grace over our mistakes, right? So if I see something I don't like, I can paint over it just like His grace takes over any of those mistakes, anything that we do wrong, His grace will cover. Now, that doesn't mean you have freedom to just do whatever you want and not ever worry about it, but how amazing is it that He gives us that grace, right? Because we all mess up, we all fall short, but He is an amazing Father that understands that and gives us the grace to get back up and try again and make it through those struggles if we just go to Him and ask forgiveness. And I think that is so special, so beautiful, because You know, sometimes you mess up for other people and it's like there's no way they're forgiving you, right? But I just I love that someone so powerful will forgive so much. Just true testament to how amazing he is. All right. I think I'm pretty happy with that. I may end up layering in some more. Of course, I say that as I brush some more harder. But here I'm not getting any more paint, so I'm really just kind of smearing out what's already on there into other areas and in with the white that was already there. Just like that, it kind of gives it another color and dimension. All right, pretty, pretty. All right, now I'm also going to mix a little bit of the white and that dark blue to make kind of a grayish color. Um, and just kind of swipe in a little bit more, which I kind of did that just by bringing those together, but I'm just going to add in just a tiny bit more here. I may even mix in a little bit of that lighter blue with it. Just a little more color there. Get with that lighter blue in it too. So just, I like having lots of color, even if it's, that's funny, lots of color, even if it's one color. So monochromatic, lots of different values, things like that. So I'm going to add just a touch more white in some of these areas that I've got a little heavy-handed with my blues. Kind of separate them a little bit. But how nice is that? You can just add some more paint and it's fine. No harm done. All right. I think I'm pretty happy with that. All right. And those bold strokes also remind me that faith doesn't have to be perfect, right? So none of this is perfect. It just has to be present. So when we add these bold strokes, these fun strokes, they don't have to be anything perfect. But when they are there, it really makes a difference to the painting as a whole. And I feel like that's true with faith. As long as you have some faith, faith as big as a mustard seed, right? It can make such a difference. All right, I'm going to paint in the base layer of my flowers, and I'm just going to use like a mustardy yellow and some white mixed together. Make a little pale yellow. And this is just a base, so I'm just going to kind of swirl it in, kind of know where my center is, and then paint around. And I don't tend to make my flowers perfectly round. If you want to, you can, but in reality, flowers are not a perfect circle. So when I brush them on, I don't typically leave them a perfect circle. I draw them on that way, but I don't leave them that way. So do what you will with that. And anytime I see flowers or paint flowers, um, I think of the verse about the woolies and how they are not worried about what they're wearing. But he still has them so beautiful, right? And I may have that verse quite a bit wrong, but the idea is still there. We don't have to worry because he's got us covered. All right, that base filled in, and then I'm gonna go ahead and fill in my leaves. I'm just gonna use my green first. Sorry, concentrating, getting in those lines. Like to start with my big leaves, and then I have some little leaves on here too that I'll add in a second. Anchor with my pinky. Speaking of anchoring, like for painting and like what we've been talking about, I like to anchor with my pinky so that then I have more control, so that stability is there. So the better you have an anchor, the more stability you have. All right, and then down here, I'm sorry, I got a little quiet. I'm gonna fill in all of these leaves with green. So I'm really just kind of doing a parentheses shape and then filling in the middle. Now for the, oh, I got one more, or two more here. Kind of bigger leaves. Not quite as big, but they go with this little flower, so they gotta be a little smaller, right? All right, so I have those filled in, and then I'm going to load up on lots of green, and then for my little leaves here, I'm just gonna dab and pull a little bit. My bristles will kind of widen and then shrink back up. I'm just gonna fill in those gaps. So plenty of paint, touch full, fill in my gaps. I got some cute little leaves there. I'm gonna do the same thing down here. And another little set right in here. A set of 4. All right. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to rinse a little bit. Don't worry about it being quickly rinsed though. And I'm actually going to take a little bit of the dark blue and add it in with the green while this is still wet. I'm just going to kind of paint some strokes in first, and then I'm going to go rub back and forth to make sure that they kind of blend in a little better. So just a touch of fun blending here. So I'm going to wipe off the extra, and then since this is still wet, I'm going to go brush back over it again, and it kind of blends into that green. So it makes it just a touch. I love using blue for shading on green instead of black. It's just very pretty. Pretty. All right. I think I'm pretty happy with that. Trying to keep it messy. Just looks more fun when it's messy. All right. And then I'm also going to add a little touch of yellow on the other side. So I rinse that blue off. I'm going to get my yellow and go up here on the other side and do the same thing. And again, instead of using white, I'm using yellow. It just makes it more vibrant. I'm just going to go brush over it. Kind of blend it in a little. I'm not worried about it being fully blended in. And there we go. And if you do any of that or something similar, and you feel like it's too much, you can always go back to your green and then just kind of rub it back over, and it'll kind of mellow it out on either one, blue or green. So I'll do a touch here, and I don't necessarily think it needs it, but just to kind of show you all what I'm talking about. Just makes it pretty. Kind of brings it all together. And I'm barely touching my brush to the canvas when I do this, so it's just dropping in little bitty bits, not lots. Okay, so there is that. Then next I am going to add some white details to the flowers and maybe a little bit more yellow in the centers. And then I'm getting close. This is all dry now, so I'm actually going to quickly, just in these bigger areas, use my big brush and go back over one more coat to make sure it's good and covered. And you can see what a difference that one more coat makes. All those streaky spots that might have been bugging you, I know they're bugging me. Go away. Just layering over the mistakes, right? Just like God does. His grace in a painting. Oh, no. Now I'm also not going necessarily all the way to the edges because I kind of like the glow that it leaves um, by leaving that a little bit open. And then I'm going to use my smaller brush for the smaller area. Look at that difference. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. There we go. Much happier with that. Add a little close to this. But I also kind of want that a little bit messy on purpose. There. Okay. So, like I said, now I'm going to go to white in the flowers. So I'm just getting white. And I'm just going to kind of make some parentheses shapes. Fun, quick, messy, not thinking too much. Kind of just going around that center with my parentheses. And then load up on white again, go here. And then here, my little one. Now, if I feel like a lot of those lines have connected too much, I can use some of my yellow to go over it some more and kind of separate them. So I'm actually going to do my mix of white and yellow and kind of go back over a little to separate those out. And I'm also getting just yellow, making some darker areas. And I'm actually going to go over those again with white just to lighten them up a little. They got a little too dark. And that's okay, right? Layers. Just like God has grace, you need to show yourself grace. So if things are not exactly the way you want them to be okay with that. And also, whenever you're painting, just trust that you can fix it. If nothing else, you can let it dry and then go over it and go again. All right. And I think I'm happy with that. Okay, so now I'm going to do the centers of my flowers. My brush nice and clean. Now, I want you to notice how these flowers just soften the steel of the anchor, just like God's peace softens the storms, right? So when things are hard, all we gotta do is trust God and He will make it easier. I'm not saying He'll make it go away every time. That's His choice, right? But He will make it easier to handle whatever storm we may be facing with God. It's always easier. All right, so putting some yellow dots in the middle, and I'm just gonna wipe that off, and then I'm gonna use my dark blue. Oop, I didn't do it very much. All right, get some dark blue and dot that in there as well. Oop, yellow's so wet and so thick. There we go. All right, fun little touches of blue in there, and then I'm gonna do some chunky little highlights around the anchor and some touches on the leaves. So we're getting close to being done. Um, so plenty of white on my brush. And I'm just going to kind of go through here and draw some lines. And it's up to you how much of this to add. Should just be some fun, bold, whimsy lines. And like, if I don't like that, I can just add some dark blue on top of it. That's fine. And I probably will, because I think I went a little too white on that stroke. That's okay, right? Things don't have to be perfect. Brighter. Here. All right. See. More. This one a little more. All right. I think I'm pretty happy with that. So now I'm just going to add some white details in my leaves. I'm going to start with these, and I'm just going to kind of not push quite as hard, but I'm going to do the same motion. Make it a little more messy than what I started there. I'm going to do that in all of these smaller leaves. There we go. And then I'm just going to add some little white detailing on my bigger leaves. Just some swipes for funsies. Always keep in mind, if you are fighting your paint, you probably need more. So if it's not working, get more paint. Get more paint, get more paint. I'm going to add in a little bit more bright in here and here, just because I have it on my brush. And I think that that's pretty pretty. I think I'm happy with that. So if you're feeling overwhelmed at all, I just want to remind you that God is still holding you. You're not drifting, you are anchored. Okay. So if this painting or message spoke to you today, I'd love it if you like this video, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to be reminded of God's unshakable love. So let me go back to that verse that we had today. So remember, our verse for today was Hebrews 6:19. We have this hope as an anchor for the soul, firm and secure. So anytime you're overwhelmed, whether it's painting or just in life, pray to God. Let him anchor you and get you through anything you're going through. So pray for y'all today, and I hope y'all have a wonderful rest of your week. Bye, guys.